Okay. So in our last class, we were discussing about attention grabbing strategies. Today, let us move on to developing leverage, which means how you can build the body of your talk, how you can craft the body of the talk. Or in other words, what are the greatest strategies which are used by great speakers to structure the body of the talk. So that is the essence of today's discussion. So today we are moving on to the body, and uh, this particular talk today, or this discussion rather, is titled as anchors to make your body memorable. Actually, my topic is 10 anchors to build an effective structure, the effective body of your talk that can give you great leverage, appealing leverage for your talk. So, this particular talk is entitled as 10 anchors that can make the body of your talk memorable. Having learned how to start with the flair and flamboyance, how to actually start impressively, let's move on how to actually maintain that momentum, because some usually have a great start in that presentation, but if the body is not crafted meticulously, although your talk is attention grabbing to begin with, it can at times really fizz out. The effectiveness of the presentation will fizz out. So to maintain the effectiveness of the presentation throughout, to maintain the tempo of your talk, what should you do? So that is what we are going to discuss, and we are going to discuss the answers for those on developing your body. So I'm essentially going to discuss with you 10 strategies. Okay, strategy 1, okay, is called as anecdotes. Okay, it's kind of an extension of a short story, what you call as anecdote. Now what I want you to do is, I'm just going to show you some samples, because I don't want it to be a talk. I would like to show you a sample, and the essence of my talk is based on uh, you know Akash's book which I dealt with you earlier. So let us first move on to anecdotes, presenting anecdotes. Any idea of what anecdote is? What is anecdote? What is anecdotal evidence? Have you heard about this word anecdotes?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah. What is anecdote, Anna?
I think it's a part of a story or something, sir. It's like a separate part of it, sir.
Absolutely. Yeah. So anecdote is sharing information from the glimpses of your life. Okay, sharing information from the glimpses of not only your life, from the people you know, which can strike a resonance with the audience. So although we have dealt about this earlier, I am going to show you a sample on how Obama used this anecdotal strategy to actually pull in a lot of crowd. Now, uh, Obama, wherever he went, he maintained the tempo of the talk throughout his, addresses. I'm just going to show you a sample. Let me try to play the video, see if the volume is okay. If not, maybe let us look at the transcript. But see if you can hear, because the full effect of it will be great if you can hear. I'm playing one video to drive home the point on what is anecdotal information. So, how Obama uses this strategy of anecdote in such an appealing manner. So, let me just play the video and listen to the first few minutes of the talk.
In 2004, then Illinois Senate candidate Barack Obama delivered the keynote address at the Democratic National Convention in Boston. He spoke about his personal background and about the Democratic Party. Here is that speech in its entirety.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dick Durbin. You make us all proud. On behalf of the great state of Illinois, crossroads of a nation, land of Lincoln, let me express my deepest gratitude for the privilege of addressing this convention. Tonight is a particular honor for me because, let's face it, my presence on this stage is pretty unlikely. My father was a foreign student, born and raised in a small village in Kenya. He grew up herding goats, went to school in a tin roof shack. His father, my grandfather, was a cook, a domestic servant to the British. But my grandfather had larger dreams for his son. Through hard work and perseverance, my father got a scholarship to study in a magical place, America, that shone as a beacon of freedom and opportunity to so many who had come before. While studying here, my father met my mother. She was born in a town on the other side of the world, in Kansas. Her father worked on oil rigs and farms through most of the Depression. The day after Pearl Harbor, my grandfather signed up for duty, joined Patton's army, marched across Europe. Back home, my grandmother raised a baby and went to work on a bomber assembly line. After the war, they studied on the GI Bill, bought a house through FHA, and later moved west, all the way to Hawaii in search of opportunity. And they too had big dreams for their daughter. A common dream born of two continents. My parents shared not only an improbable love, they shared an abiding faith in the possibilities of this nation. They would give me an African name, Barak, or blessing, believing that in a tolerant America, your name is no barrier to success. They imagined me going to the best schools in the land, even though they weren't rich, because in a generous America, you don't have to be rich to achieve your potential. They're both passed away now. And yet I know that on this night, they look down on me with great pride. They stand here, and I stand here today, grateful for the diversity of my heritage, aware that my parents' dreams live on in my two precious daughters. I stand here.
Okay, so this is what I wanted to show you first 3 minutes. Now let us look at the transcript. Did you hear the speech, by the way?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I just want you to show you the transcript. Let us take let's read this transcript and understand how Obama has applied the power of anecdotes to actually mesmerize crowds. Did you see how the crowd was so mesmerized?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Let's take a look at this transcript. I just want one of you to please read the first 2 minutes of his talk to 1 minute. Am I sharing the screen?
No, sir.
Okay, wait. Just wait a second. Yeah. So I'll just highlight that. Please read what I highlight. I'll make it. Okay. I'll move it as you read. Can I have one of the volunteers to please read the transcript of Obama's talk? Yeah, please go ahead.
Tonight is a particular honor for me because, let's face it, my presence on this stage is pretty unlikely. My father was a foreign student, born and raised in a small village in Kenya. He grew up herding goats, went to a school in a tin roof shack. His father, my grandfather, was a cook, a domestic servant to the British. But my grandfather had larger dreams for his son. Through hard work and perseverance, my father got a scholarship to study in a magical place, America, that shone as a beacon of freedom and opportunity to so many who had come before. While studying here, my father met my mother. She was born in a town on the other side of the world, in Kansas. Her father worked on oil rigs and farms through most of the Depression. The day after Pearl Harbor, my grandfather signed up for duty, joined Patton's army, marched across Europe. My parents shared not only an improbable love, they shared an abiding faith in the possibilities of this nation. They would give me an African name, Barak or Blessed, believing that in a tolerant America your name is no barrier to success. They imagined they imagined me going to the best schools in the land, even though they weren't rich, because in a generous America you don't have to be rich to achieve your potential. They are both passed away now, and yet I know that on this night they look down on me with great pride. They stand here, and I stand here today, grateful for the diversity of my heritage, aware that my parents' dreams live on in my two precious daughters. I stand here knowing that my story is part of the larger American story, that I owe a debt to all of those who came before me, and that in no other country on earth is my story even possible.
Yes. So how mesmerizing is it? See how he just develops a great connect with the audience by just driving home the point that name is no barrier to success. Color is no barrier to success. Caste is no barrier to success. And he just drives the audience to sync with him because he's sharing the story of an improbable love between his parents. He shares the story of his grandparents. So it's a kind of a narration, and this narrative was in 2004 the most powerful rhetoric in America that drove the nation and made Barack Obama the president. And there is one more talk which is filled with a lot of anecdotal evidence. Uh, we can change, or yes I can. If you just go and Google the greatest talks of Obama, you will come across these talks, and most of these talks you will find that he follows the strategy of presenting anecdotes about his life to drive home the point. So my question to you is, do you find this strategy of uh, anecdotes appealing?
Yes, sir, I find it
Yes, sir.
appealing, but the way they deliver is also important, right, sir? Simply
Absolutely.
sharing an anecdote doesn't work all the time.
Very important point. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the bottom line. It's not what you say that matters, but how you say that matters. A very important point. Yeah. So we are discussing about strategy. I think you have really hit the nail on its head, Yashmita. But it is good to know the strategies. Delivery is what we will discuss a little later, but very important point. Any observation from Anna about the power of anecdote? Do you find this appealing?
Yes, I find it very appealing, sir. Especially what Yashmita said too. Like the way he delivered was really nice, and especially
True.
he a lot of times he said like I mean he expressed a love for America too. So
Yeah.
since that is a crowd, even they'll lend their ears and cheer him up because
Yes.
it's about the country.
Yeah.
So that was very appealing, sir.
True, true, true. There's kind of an aura of invincibility in the talk, and especially when you strike a chord with the crowd, and that aura is so natural. So both of you have made very important point. So let's move on to strategy two, adapted by great speakers. That was a great example. I mean, if possible, I mean, I'll share the link. Go and watch the full talk. You'll know why. Just the power of rhetoric alone, this man is able to pull in the crowd. People, they were so mesmerized whenever they listened to him. So please take a look at the full talk. There are a lot of anecdotes throughout the address. So moving on to strategy two. Moving on to strategy two, second anchor is actually called as acronyms. Okay, the second strategy, first strategy, anecdotes, and the second A, strategy two for crafting a very good body is acronyms. I remember Jeffrey in the last class when I was having a casual discussion with you, said that she's going to talk about the 7 C's of communication. See, that is a strategy. This strategy is called as the strategy of acronyms. For example, just having a certain letters of the language so that you just remember. For example, today let me deliver a talk on 7 C's of communication, and let me illustrate each C with good and bad examples. The 7 C's of communication. The first thing that I wish to talk about is clarity. The second aspect of communication that I would like to talk about is conciseness. The third one I would like to talk about is presenting concrete information. And very importantly, my fourth C today is how to present it with correctness. And the fifth C is to present it with coherence. And the sixth C is how to make your talk complete. And the seventh C is to be very courteous in your talk. So this is a strategy. The English language is never short of words. For any particular talk, you can have 5 acronyms. 7 C's, 5 B's, 5 A's, or you can have a particular word where each first letter stands for something. Why should we use acronyms? I just like to make an important point here. We should use acronyms because if you use acronyms, you can remember a lot of information very easily. For example, 7C, if conciseness, clarity, if there are different words for that, it's very difficult to remember. But if it is all in C's, it's easy to remember. Or at least you can even write down, it doesn't matter. But whenever you talk about a particular C, it actually is so appealing when you present it. And this strategy is called as the power of acronyms. So I gave you something to reflect on in your last class in terms of structuring your talk. And today's talk, I'm giving you something to reflect on in terms of building and adding more leverage to your body, to the body of talk, and make it more appealing. And what I am today emphasizing is not only to start off on a high, but to actually maintain the tempo, maintain the electricity, and keep up that high voltage even when you progress, and even end on a high. So your 5 minute or 8 minute, the tempo should come down. Some people start on a high, it just becomes so flat. It shouldn't be flat all the time, it should peak. So second strategy is spiking your talk with using a lot of anecdotes. So what are the two strategies we discussed today?
The usage of anecdotes and the acronym.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. One, usage of anecdotes and usage of acronyms. Think about your talk that you have planned. See if you can, in any part of the talk, bring in some acronyms. Some popular speakers, if you watch, they do this. So acronym is a great strategy. So moving on, I would just like to introduce you to a third strategy. Please tell me if you remember anybody doing that. Actually engaging the listener with some kind of activities. Okay, during the particular talk, they'll give a talk. The talk could be on something, but they'll make the listeners to do it as an activity. Have you been a part of such talks?
No, sir.
Okay. Where, for example, when you are talking about stress, let's say you are delivering a talk on stress, you give them a particular situation and make two persons to discuss among themselves how they will deal with that situation, and then you ask the answers from different people would have reacted in different ways. Then you will discuss which is the best reaction, and then you will go on to talk about the evidence based reactions of mature people who deal with stress. So it is making the listeners put themselves in the situation using activities. You need to be very, very creative to do these kind of activities. So the third strategy, you can make an attempt of doing some activity, but of course you can't try that in a short talk as we are doing now. We are actually planning for a 5 to 6 minute TED talk. Probably we can't do that an activity, but probably when we finish the course and we will have an 18-minute TED talk for you, just as a classical TED talk. At those times you can try to deliberately apply these strategies to maintain the tempo all those 18 minutes. So the third strategy for an appealing body of the talk is to have some activities for your listeners wherein you help them to visualize that particular situation, react to that particular situation, and discuss their reactions to it. So make them do, make them feel, make them think, make them visualize, make them be a part of the situation, not necessarily bombard them with information, but help them visualize. Activities will give you that kind of a feel in talks. Okay, moving on. The third thing, I'll put it in the chat box. Okay, and let us discuss this. This is anchoring strategy 4. I would like to have a discussion about this. Let me actually put this in the chat box of what anchoring strategy 4 is. Okay, it is actually called as analogies, similes, and metaphors. Actually, let me drive home the point of what it is by giving you a small cameo, feel what it is. So I would just like to request a volunteer to please uh, read what I have posted. Yeah, so
Yes,
that we
sir.
can drive home the point better. Yeah, please go ahead, Anna. Yeah.
One of the best ways to remember or learn something is to link the new topic you're trying to learn to something that you're already familiar with. In other words, the best way to learn is to create a bridge between the familiar and the unfamiliar. Analogies, similes, and metaphors compare two unlike objects to one another. They are great anchors because they take a subject that audience members are already familiar with and create a connection or a link between the known and the new information.
Yes, let me give you an example. That was just beautiful. uh, I think all of you have digested the information that Anna has read. See, analogies, similes, and metaphors helps you to actually compare. For example, when you compare this generation to the past generation, when you compare your reaction to a particular situation to the reaction of your parents or your grandparents, or if you could compare the programs of today and the programs of the 1970s in television, see, and you can show some live examples or give some analogies, you know, this strategy is called as actually comparing and contrasting. And of course you can use some metaphors and similes also when you compare, but you can connect to information which can cut across generations. Let us say you have a mixed audience, an audience where there are people of age 70 and there are people of teenagers. Let's say it is an all encompassing audience. When you, for any given topic, when you make a compare and contrast, when you go back 50 years back to the journey, and when you come back to the present, switch back to another 50 years and come back to the present and talk about the topic, I think that is one of the great ways to actually hook the audience. because it makes them feel of people who have experienced the previous generation and also to the present generation. So what I mean is you can cater to the wide audience fraternity. So it's not necessarily about generation gaps. Any topics you can compare and contrast. Again, when you talk about your life, you can talk about how your schooling was 10 years back and how education is at present. Suppose you are, let's say you are asked to give a TED talk on education. Let's say that you are applying all the 4 strategies that we have discussed today. The first strategy, let's say that you are starting off with with as just as Barack did. Let's say you are starting off with an anecdotal information, whereas you will come across some stories from your particular life which so much appeal to you, which I believe will appeal to others about education. So that could be something about your schooling, something very interesting that happened in your life. So, and again, if you were to give some acronyms about your school life, probably you can just have 5 or 6 key concepts that you want to talk about and have one alphabet for each and leverage your talk based on the acronyms. And suppose you have to apply the strategy 3 on activities, as I said, probably make the audience feel a particular situation, or you can just give some analogies on how your schooling was 10 years back and how the children of the present generation feel about schooling. So this kind of strategy is also used by novelists. They call this a stream of consciousness. In many movies we come across this strategy, where things actually don't happen in the present. Talk is also like that. Your talk is like a drama. When you're talking about something which happens all the time in the present, or what is going to happen all the time in the future, it is not so appealing. But now and then, like a drama, like a colorful canvas, if you can transport your imagination, say some few years back, about how joyful the days were, of the good times that you had with friends, the collaborative environment, and the present times of how things are. And it is a kind of a drama where you switch between the present and the past in your talk. Now, let me ask you, do you find this kind of strategy appealing? I mean, in movies or talks, when the memory is transported to the past and present, talks are also like that. Some talks sit only on the present and foresees only the future. Some talks transport you, helps you to visualize the past, connect with the past, and this strategy is called as analogies. So we discussed the 4 strategies today. Do you find, let me ask you a question, do you find this strategy appealing?
Yes, I personally find it very appealing because when speakers talk about the future, maybe we won't be able to relate to it much because we have not experienced it yet. But when it's about the past and when it's about the present, we can totally relate to it. So I think I find this very appealing, sir.
Absolutely. Trenchant observation. Lovely observation, Anna. So you can just relate to what has happened in the past, but you can't relate what is just going to happen in future. I think that's really a profound point that you have made. I truly agree. So we discussed 4 strategies. Out of these 4 strategies, reflect on a small homework when you come for the next class. um, I asked you to think about 1 or 2 openings, craft some openings. We have discussed the 4 strategies on developing your body. Think about one strategies of how you are going to take your talk, and I'll catch up with you on Monday with 1 or 2 strategies of a great opening and 1 or 2 strategies of the great pointers for developing the body. Of course, there are a few more strategies. I'll discuss that in the next class. So I'll keep it short. So to wind up this class, can one of you rephrase the 4 strategies we discussed today? What are the 4 strategies of a great body of a talk?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
The first one is the anecdote strategy, in which we will
Yeah.
share our own life story.
Yeah.
The second strategy is the acronym strategy. That is, for example, if we use the three C's, so like that we can apply a strategy. Third one is making the listeners to involve in an activity so that we can connect and engage with the audience or the listeners. And the fourth is the analogy strategy, which is one of the best ways to remember or learn something, to link the new topic we are learning to what we've already know.
Yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you very much, Anna. That's so wonderfully summed up. So I'll stop my recording and just have a casual discussion with you.